Welcome to the Pro-Life Perspective. I'm Abigail Lorenzen, and this is the podcast of Right to Life of Northeast Indiana. Today, we are talking about our Life Defenders Camp that happens every summer here in Northeast Indiana. It's for high school and college students. And so we have one of our friends on today who has been through the camp a whole handful of times. And she is away at college right now, actually. So you'll see that reflected in her video. She's videoing with us from her dorm at Hillsdale College. Violet, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for fitting us in your busy schedule in between classes.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So what are you studying at Hillsdale?
I am studying English and I'm minoring in religion.
Okay. And how did you come to that? What brought you on the path to an English major?
Yeah, I loved my literature classes in high school, but I had a lot of interests coming here. And Hillsdale's core curriculum is very broad, and you kind of get to try a little bit of everything. And I had to take 2 English classes to fulfill that core, and those were by far my favorite of those classes. And so I kind of just I just kind of followed the path of the classes that I enjoyed, and that's how I ended up doing English and religion.
Yeah, which is a great part of having to do a core curriculum. Sometimes you discover things that maybe, now you had a hunch, it sounded like, from the literature classes, but I think for other people, they fall into sometimes things that like, oh, I had no idea I enjoyed this so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, neat. And you said you're doing an internship this summer, you think?
Yeah, I will be interning with a public relations company, and they do things like journalism, ghostwriting, editing, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nice. And you're in your junior year at Hillsdale?
Yes, that is correct.
Our camp that we do every summer is open for high school and college age students. So being a junior, that means you would have had the opportunity to go about 7 times. And did you figure out how many times you have been?
I think it is 7. I think I calculated that after the last one. You kind of lose track after 3, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's fun too. We've got kids, so we have kids, Violet, like you, who have come year after year after year after year, which I think is a testament to how great the camp is at what we're providing. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things I love is that students who are coming back after lots of years of coming, they wear their shirts from the past years. And it almost feels like a competition to see like who has the oldest shirt, because we make a new edition of the shirt every year. And so you can track like, oh, how many years have you been here by what's the oldest shirt that you have? And so it's kind of fun to see people do that. And your mom has been to the camp a lot of times as a chaperone for us. Your siblings have been to the camp. So I bet between you guys, you've got quite a library of shirts stacked up.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So to give people a little background on our Life Defenders Camp, it's 3 days during the summer. It's open to high school and college age students. And the whole goal is to give people a background in pro-life apologetics. And then sort of a secondary goal is to allow high school and college students who are pro-life to find each other and to create relationships. So that's the basics of it. And I want to, Violet, kind of start with what your experience have been at camp and what you like most about camp. So let's start there, and then we can keep branching off and sort of fill people in on what they might expect if they were coming to camp.
Yeah. I went with a pretty large group from my church, and I actually do feel that Life Defenders was part of the way that I got entered into the youth group at my church, just because it is kind of a bonding experience. You're all learning and growing together in a very short amount of time. And yeah, it was my first time when I was 14. Going to Life Defenders was my first time hearing in-depth pro-life apologetics and the arguments concerning, any form of bioethics, really. And
so your church youth group, even though you guys are super involved as a church, your church youth group hadn't taught you those things.
We had so far. I think there had been sermons on it once or twice. And I don't know if I was in there for them. I don't remember them. I just remember hearing the arguments at Life Defenders and being very, I knew that we had truth on our side, and I knew that the arguments could be made, but I was very impressed and very convicted that these were arguments that I needed to put into use. So
yeah, and that's how I felt too the first time I heard them. That like, I grew up in the church my whole life. My dad is a philosophy professor. Like, I walked into the first one thinking, oh, I'm going to know all this. I literally, Violet, I didn't bring in paper and pencil because I didn't expect to take any notes. I thought I would know everything. And then like 30 seconds into hearing Mike Spencer, who does our first level training, 30 seconds into hearing him, I was like, oh, shoot, I'm going to need a notebook and a pen stat because I didn't know any of what our Life Defenders camp teaches. And I was a college graduate who had taken theology and philosophy courses and had a prof for a dad. And like, it is incredible how, and I ask you about your church, Violet, because your church here in Fort Wayne is one of the most like ardently, openly pro-life churches that I know. You guys talk about it more than anybody else. So if you came in not having those things already in your mind, like, oh, maybe I had heard them, but they hadn't really stuck. They hadn't really formulated there. If you said that, then I think probably the rest of the Christians in Fort Wayne are also in that same boat of like, we've never heard this stuff. And it is convicting and it's convincing in this really inspiring way too. I think kind of what you were hitting on of like, truth is on our side. I need to put these arguments into use because they're really good arguments. All right. So I cut you off. Keep going. Keep telling us about your first year.
Yeah. Mike Spencer, who teaches the level, was amazing and made the information very palatable for sure. He's just a very genuine person, pretty charismatic. And I don't remember what breakout sessions I took that year, but I think I took Dr. Francis's abortion's effects on women's health, or whatever the official title for that is.
Something like that.
Yeah, and that kind of just backed up everything else that I was learning, because it was like, okay, we have logic on our side and we have science on our side, which was just very encouraging as well.
Yeah. Does Hillsdale have a pro-life group?
We do. It's one of the bigger clubs on campus. The primary thing that we do is sending like 120 students, sometimes even to the March for Life. And that's where most of our resources go. But I know that they have some outreaches planned this semester. They have a lot of speaker events. That's one of the biggest things that they do. And I'm somewhat involved with them as well. I tried to go on an outreach with them on Saturday and it ended up getting canceled, but
oh, bummer. Yeah. And that's a lot of what Created Equal does. Like you mentioned, you went on a justice ride with them. That's all outreach training and then, outreach. So you've got some experience in that. Yeah. So Life Defenders, you mentioned the breakout session about abortion's effect on women. And I love that you mentioned that, because when we present information at Life Defenders, we do try to sort of cover the whole spectrum of ways to look at the abortion issue. So Life Defenders is primarily looking at the abortion issue. We do cover the other issues in the breakout sessions, though, and love that students have the opportunity to go dig into things that they want to look deeper at. So we often cover things like in vitro fertilization. We cover end of life stuff. We cover how to be active in the political arena when you're still a student, things like that. But the overarching idea is, how do we use science? How do we use logic? How do we use the Christian worldview to show people that human beings have value, and that any of the pro-life issues then would be taking away that dignity, taking away that value. It's an attack on the human person. And you cannot just attack one human person's dignity and think that that's the end of it, right? Like you look at the Holocaust and what that did to human beings. It didn't just affect those human beings being attacked. It affected everybody else in the entire world. It affects it affects the entire population of humanity as to how we are looking at things. And did we get involved and didn't we get involved, and why not? Those things have ripple effects as well as to how the American population views each other, views other nations, views others' ethnicities and cultures. I mean, so the impact of what students are coming to Life Defenders for, I think, is really broad in the rest of their life. And I love that about who we bring in to teach, about the topics that we have to present on. So Violet, I want to ask you too, what are some of your most memorable breakout sessions that you've been to?
Yeah, certainly the one on IVF, because I do think it revealed kind of the underlying issue of what you were just saying, how we view human beings. And abortion is kind of part of the ripple effect of just kind of our view of human beings right now, particularly the preborn. And it's very utilitarian. It's very, maybe utilitarian isn't the right word, but functional. It's whatever is unhelpful to us, whatever suffering, that we avoid that at all costs, even if that is to the detriment of other people. And you see that in a lot of places, but abortion and IVF and in the case of the preborn, I think is one of the most prevalent areas.
Yeah.
So the IVF talk, I definitely think opened my eyes to the commodification of life, of infants, of children, and that's treated as an abortion, and it's how they're being treated in IVF as well. So I think that one.
Yeah, there's a mix, when you were mentioning worldviews just now, there's a mix maybe between like the hedonistic worldview that says avoid suffering at all cost, and the utilitarian worldview that says people are only worth what they contribute to society, or they're worth like how I can use them in a certain way. So looking at human beings as objects instead of subjects. And there's this sort of intersection, I think, in the two. And I don't think people who are going through IVF recognize that that's what's going on in our culture, that that's what they're being pushed to by just the overarching views of society. But it is interesting when you start to look at those worldviews that you mentioned, how those do have this much wider, broader impact and then funnel all the way down to these individuals' lives. Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. So the IVF talk was huge. I think there's one on adoption, I think, or adoption and foster care last year. And that was totally new to me, or not last year, 2 years ago. And that was totally new to me. It was kind of my parents have adopted twice, but it was still kind of a foreign concept to me. And obviously you see the connection with abortion, and it's like, okay, can't take care of these children. What do we do with them? And the argument that the other side has is it's better for them to die than have to suffer in a bad foster care situation, or a bad adoption situation, or an orphanage, or whatever it is. And again, very eye-opening, because he kind of disproved that to a certain extent. And I feel like he was very fair. He did admit to a lot of the system's problems, but kind of made the argument that it is exaggerated by the other side to a certain extent. And even if it weren't, that's still not an excuse at all, because you don't kill someone because they might experience suffering at some point in the future, because we all are going to experience suffering at some point in the future. And that's just not. So that one was another one that kind of stuck in my mind.
Yeah. Was that Judge Pratt who taught that one?
Yeah, I think it was. That sounds right.
Yeah. So in Fort Wayne, he's retired now, but served on the bench a long, long time in family court, helping with adoptions and everything that you just said. And he was willing to come in and teach a breakout session for us. And that's one thing I love about Life Defenders, is that we're able to bring in experts in their fields to talk about all of these different issues. And so any of the students who come get a chance not only to hear from them in the breakout session, but because of the way that camp is structured, a lot of the speakers stay for lunch. And so you can sit, and I don't know, Violet, if you've done this, but you can sit and you can chat with the breakout speakers and the instructors, because we have sort of two roads running at the same time. We have instruction that goes on for pro-life apologetics, specifically about abortion. And then we have breakouts that are happening on lots of other topics and going in deeper about certain topics. And so you get a chance to talk to both of the instructors and the breakout speakers during lunch, because they stick around, or in between the breakout sessions, because there's 15-minute breaks and there's muffins and coffee and chips and salsa and that kind of thing. And you can eat your guac and talk to a retired judge about what adoption looks like, which I think is really, really neat. Any other breakouts that stick in your mind from the years that you've been to Life Defenders?
Any of the ones that went into really in depth into particular arguments that the other side makes, or deals with particular issues, those are all very interesting to me. So yeah, like the abortion's effects on women, IVF, adoption, all of those are issues kind of within the abortion debate that we're able to zoom in on in those breakout sessions. And maybe that kind of describes all of the breakout sessions, but definitely the more philosophical or ethical ones appeal to me a lot.
Have you felt like you've used what you learned at the Life Defenders camps in your everyday life, or do you feel like it's sort of dusty sitting on the shelf in your brain?
I definitely think I use it in my everyday life. I think that there are periods of time where I use it more or less, but even in classes and things at school, I wrote a speech on IVF for a class at one point. Some of my papers that have zoomed in on different moral issues or attacks on individual classes of people, because I mean, we see a lot of that throughout history, and I think that the arguments that we apply to abortion can apply to a lot of those things as well. And so kind of thinking about those issues in connection with what I know about current human rights issues. That was the phrase I was looking for. But
human rights issues?
Just human rights, yeah. So, yeah, I do think that it shaped the way that I think about a lot of those things. Because you hear the connection too of between, abortion and slavery, and just kind of the disparaging against a class of people for whatever differences. And also thinking about how those issues have been dealt with. And yeah, just comparing the two, I think, has been super helpful just in my academic career. But then also talking to friends and relatives about those issues, for sure. And that's maybe less frequent, but sometimes it does come up. And it feels very right to be able to have a response to those things instead of just kind of saying what you think but not being able to back it up. So yeah.
And I think that's maybe where Life Defenders hits its sweet spot, Violet, is this place where, okay, I actually know not just arguments. I don't just have phrases that I can say back to you, or like gotcha sayings, or slogans, but like I actually have a depth of knowledge that backs up this argument. So I can present this to you, over our Thanksgiving turkey dinner. And then if you have questions or if you want to push back, I actually have the depth of knowledge to be able to hold a robust conversation about it. And I love the amount of confidence that background gives the students who come, that they leave feeling like, man, I could really actually have a conversation about this. And that when a conversation does present itself, they hop in because they've got the background, they've got the knowledge. And I find that so inspiring every year when I'm looking at the students interacting with each other. You can see a difference when they walk in to when they walk out of camp. You can see how much more confidence they've gained, how much more energy there is behind it. I also love watching the change, Violet, between when they come in and they don't know each other to when they leave and they've been in the classrooms together, they've been doing activities together. So when you started, Violet, our camp was basically a 24-hour camp, and it packed a punch, but it was a little bit of like a mountaintop experience. And now we've expanded it to 3 days, 2.5, 3 days, something like that, because we wanted to give students more time to develop relationships with each other, right? So Violet, you're at Hillsdale now, but we have a lot of kids who come from public schools, they come from homeschool situations, and they haven't had a chance to be around other students who think the same way that they do, that hold the same worldview as them. And so a lot of times their pro-life convictions keep them rather isolated socially. They feel like they can't broach those topics. So I love seeing in those 3 days, students who came together are branching out and creating larger friend groups. Students who came by themselves have established a friend group at camp. And every once in a while, we have students get married who met each other at Life Defenders, and that just cracks me up so bad. I love it. I've been invited to weddings of our Life Defenders kids. But did you see that, Violet, in your years coming, that you were able to connect with fellow students in a way that maybe you couldn't just during the course of the school year?
Yeah, absolutely. I genuinely have never seen anything quite so unifying as the pro-life movement. And I think that's probably true of anyone fighting, any group of people fighting against injustice. I think that that is just probably the most unifying thing that humans experience. But yeah, I definitely have seen groups of students from my church grow closer together through that. And even like with myself, I have gotten to know people there, and it is just a hopeful thing too, because you see that even in Indiana, there are that many people who are willing to come to a camp and spend 3 days learning about these things. And then so many of them go off and apply it. It's actually very, very encouraging to see how many people go and apply it. So
yeah, definitely. Anything else that you want to tell us about your experiences at Life Defenders, or, you know, if you were talking to someone, maybe a fellow Hillsdale student, they were like, "Oh, I don't know if I really want to. I don't know if I really want to go. You know, it's summer."
I think so many people think that they know the pro-life argument and know enough about it, and like I've taken the apologetics, I know how to make my case, and so that they students who have been don't think they need to come back, and students who haven't gone but know the arguments don't think that they need to go. And it's just different every year. The breakouts are always changing, and the issue is so broad and it can be applied in so many realms that it can't really be exhausted. I don't think there's been a year where I haven't learned something new that kind of shifted my perspective a little bit, or made me apply the ethics of the abortion issue to something else, or see how it affects certain other areas, whether that's the medical realm or philosophy, like it just, or even historical. It's so pervasive in our society that I don't think you can exhaust it.
I don't think so either. You know, I'm in charge in part with my staff member Phoebe, fellow staff member Phoebe. We're in charge of figuring out those breakout sessions every year, and there's always a million topics that we want to do, and then we have to like tone it down and say, okay, what are the 8 breakout sessions? What are the 10 breakout sessions that we're going to do, and who do we have teach them? And then it's fun too, always to decide who are we going to bring in. We usually have enough budget to bring in 1 or 2 people who we have to fly in from across country. So like, who are the big speakers? Who are the big, super knowledgeable people in these couple of topics? And who do we fly in this year to talk about these other sort of tangential or, you know, prevalent but not as much talked about topics inside the pro-life movement. So it is fun to see what else are we going to give the kids access to this year. And it always is interesting too, Violet, to see how many students choose to go to which breakout sessions, because we let students pick their own breakout sessions, right? We don't dictate that. So it's interesting to see always what the popular ones are and which topics the kids are drawn to, and inspiring to see that too, because they'll choose things like, well, how do I be more active in the pro-life movement? What are 10 things that I can do as a student? Well, that's really inspiring for us who work in the pro-life movement to see, like, look at these kids. They want to do stuff. They want to get involved, and they have tons to do at school and tons of homework to do, but they are still interested in using that little bit of extra time they have to make a difference in their communities. And I love that about the Life Defender students.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that the camp makes the issue feel more approachable. Like it is something that you can have a say on, that you can do something about. And I think that the camp kind of shows you that. And you meet all these people who are doing things about it. And you hear their stories. And even though it can feel like kind of a hopeless cause sometimes, I think that seeing all of these people doing big things and little things towards the same end is just very hopeful as well.
Yeah, you feel like part of the bigger team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for joining us today, Violet. I appreciate your perspective on things.
Thank you so much for having me again. It was good to be here.
And good luck on your studies at Hillsdale. Well, more like God's blessings on your studies at Hillsdale.
Yeah. I will need it. No, I'm just kidding. It's
well,
great.
you said you've got finals coming up, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Papers, all that.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in with us. This has been the Pro-Life Perspective. I'm Abigail Lorenzen, and we'll catch you guys next time.